A very good afternoon to you. Many thanks for joining us on this first day of April 2014. This is Citizen Live at 1. I'm Janet Mbogwa. Some of the details will be following for you. Many passengers have found themselves without transport to go to work. This is obviously as a result of public service vehicles' failure to abide by the new regulations. We'll have those details for you shortly and also bring you updates from the Eastleigh blast. Also, cabinet secretaries continue to hold media briefings to spell out their achievements in the last 1 year. Entering the second day today, the second cluster was chaired by Mining Minister Najib Balala. Details in the hour with Henry Githaiga. Plus the heartwarming story of students in Kiambu School who are doing all they can to raise funds to help their ailing teacher. Even Wamboy will have those details for us. We'll also be hosting the woman representative for Nyandarua County, Wanjiko Mohia, in this newscast. You can text us on 22422 or tweet us at Citizen TV News to share your views and feedback. To our top story now, there was near paralysis of public transport across the country this morning after Matatu operators opted to stay away from the road to avoid being slapped with hefty fines for failing to comply with new safety regulations. Matatu operators still want an extension to yesterday's deadline to fit speed governors and other requirements under the National Transport and Safety Authority Act. Salim Bilu tells us more.
It would be a chaotic morning for commuters countrywide, predictably so. With just about 10,000 PSV vehicles having complied with the new regulations by close of business yesterday, the bulk of over 100,000 others were yet to be inspected, setting off a disruption of public transport across the country.
I was here at 6:30, but up to now, ban is on Billy. So that's why we are stranded here.
Hapa tulifika mwendo wa saa 12:30. Sasa tumekaa hapa hata tunashindwa namna gani. Na yenye inakuja hapa zinakuja zimejaa. Zingine wanalipisha pesa mingi.
The fare is 200 shillings, but most of the cars are reaching up to Githurai. For me, I'm going for an examination and I have to be in school by 9.
And so Matatu operators were on Tuesday left with no choice but to park their vehicles, further compounding a public transport crisis.
Sisi ndio tunaumia, hata sasa hizi tumekaa hapo na wengine wamelala. Hatuna kazi bali pa kwenda utajikwa. Inabidi tu tumerelax tu hapa kwa gari yetu hapa, tulia tu.
Sijui tutakula nini, sijui tutaenda wapi, magari yetu yote imelala hapa.
Many others jammed motor vehicle inspection units in a last-minute rush to comply and be back on the road. It's a crisis that has since seen Matatu owners and operators lament the lack of digital speed governors, which in turn is slowing down the process of implementation. The new regulations meant to reduce road carnage require operators to install digital speed governors and that Matatu and bus drivers be employed on permanent and pensionable terms, complete with scheduled shifts.
Cabinet secretaries today held their second public briefing at Harambee House, where they all outlined the achievements and plans of their respective ministries. The media briefings are meant to keep the public informed about how government programs are being implemented. Mining Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala chaired today's session, where his ministry spelled out some of its current programs and where the transport, energy, ICT and East African community dockets were also represented. Let's listen to some of the earlier presentations by the cabinet ministries.
The main achievements of my ministry for the last 1 year, the challenges that we have faced, and also highlight the plans that we have for the next 1 year. Now, my ministry is an enabler for trade facilitation. Our focus is to increase trade, both within nationally and also within the region. Our other strategic objective is to promote and market trade and investments. And lastly, we coordinate regional efforts in terms of our fulfillment of the EAC Treaty. This we do because we would like to access wider and deeper markets for our products and services. Now, in terms of the specifics, tourism, we did achieve quite a number of things, but I'm just going to highlight a few of them, one of which was we did finalize a strategic plan for the 5-year strategic plan for the sector, and we are using that strategic plan as a guideline both for at the national level and also at the county level by giving the counties a guidelines in terms of them coming up with their roadmap. Our efforts in terms of our achievements is one that I'm going to highlight. We have launched an EAC single tourist visa and also the use of ID so that we can ease movement both in terms of the tourists that are coming into this country and also visiting the region, and also to ease movements of peoples and laborers across the region.
That there is Phyllis Kandie, of course, the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Tourism. And the second media briefing by Cabinet Secretaries in Nairobi, which concluded a while ago, has not only shed more light on government programs, but also came at a time when the transport sector faces a crisis after many bus and matatu operators kept their vehicles off the road today after failing to beat the deadline for the installation of digital speed governors and other requirements of the NTSA Act. We're now joined live from Harambee House by Henry Gidaga, who's flanked by Transport PS Nduvamuli, for more on this unfolding crisis. Henry.
Thank you very much, Janet. We are now joined by the Permanent Secretary in charge of the Transport Docket, and a lot of Kenyans today feeling a bit disenfranchised. They had to walk to work. They feel that the government maybe did not take its time with these new regulations. What's your stance as government at the moment?
Yeah, first of all, the inconvenience to Kenyans today is regretted, but more regrettable is the amount of lives that we lose every day on our roads due to lack of safety measures, especially in our public service vehicles. So this process is a process that has a greater good, and the greater good is that we can save the lives of our brothers, our sisters, our mothers on the roads, and we are working towards supporting the PSVs meet the regulations. We gave quite a lot of time. Actually, the deadline that was given was actually given by the stakeholders themselves, by the operators themselves. Initially, the ministry had looked at January, and they asked for more time, up to March, and then it was agreed, well, then 1st April is a suitable time. So we are going to support everyone to ensure they comply. Compliance is not an event, it's a process, and it is continuous, indeed a continuous process.
Okay, so as you mentioned, it is a process, and a lot of people feeling that maybe the process should be given more time so that they don't suffer. Some of the operators saying that they do not have the gadgets, there are not enough gadgets in the country, especially the speed governors. What's your response to this?
We have information that quite a lot of governors over that period have been installed. A lot of the operators didn't meet, again, another part of the regulation or the other. So it's not only, and I think let's be quite clear, it's not only about the speed governor. There are other very simple things that are required. One of the requirements is that all the operators must display the name of their SACCO or company very boldly on the front, rear and sides of their vehicle. Now that is not something that should take more than an hour to do. So there are several things, and I think we need to ensure that we support them to meet these regulations.
Okay, what about the commuter who had to walk to work today and will probably have to walk to work tomorrow? What measures are being put in place so that in future, once we introduce such regulations, we are not held at ransom by transport operators?
Well, first of all, as I said, the vehicle inspection centers are working overtime. Many people, many operators are making every effort they can to comply. All our inspection centers are full, but we will not close work today until each and every vehicle is inspected, and we hope to ensure that a lot more are released to service. And I believe this problem will be coming to an end very, very soon.
Okay, to most Kenyans, the perception has been is because there are not enough centers for the checking. Just to dispel that notion, how many centers are there and how many vehicles are they able to do each and every day?
There are several centers in the country, over 18 centers all over the country. Basically what we're saying is that we have an efficient process. The centers have been properly manned. We have people monitoring that continuously. And as I said this morning, we released close to 500 vehicles that were inspected and approved. So we have put all measures in place to ensure that there is no delay in the inspection. What we would want is for the operators to also make an effort to comply and come forward so that we can get them back onto the road in a manner and mean that will ensure that Kenyans are safe.
Okay, listening to your speech a bit earlier on, you had spoken about 4,000 people a day being evacuated by train using the various stations that you have set up along Mombasa Road. How soon would the rest of Nairobi and also the rest of the country expect to see sort of a transit system using rail?
As you know, we have got a master plan for Nairobi on what we call an urban mass transit system that is involving railroad systems. And as I mentioned in what I talked about, we're also now working on the line to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. There are other lines to Embakasi Village that are being worked on. And already in Mombasa, we have completed preliminary design for a commuter rail at the coast. We've already completed preliminary design for a commuter rail in Western Kenya around the lake. And as you know, the standard gauge will also be a part of a transit system for passengers. So there's a lot of work going into railway development to provide an alternative means of transport.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, Janet, there are also other ministries represented here today as the cabinet continues to keep us updated on what they have been able to achieve so far. The interesting thing has been from the Ministry of Energy, who feel that Kenyans are actually have not yet been able to find out how much money they should be paying for connection to the national electricity grid, and the Principal Secretary, Mr. Njoroge, actually told Kenyans that you should not pay more than 35,000 shillings to get connected to power if you are a domestic power user. And he also announced the introduction of a subsidy by the government. He says the government has already been releasing in some of this money in batches. Already Kenya Power should have 1 billion shillings to ensure that the price of connecting to power does not go up. And in this interest, he says that they're also introducing an additional grant of about 64 to 68 billion shillings to enable more Kenyans get connected to the national power grid using a lower connectivity cost of 35,000 shillings, and also highlighting that the school primary school laptop project has enabled more schools to get connected to the national power grid. So far, 10,000 schools connected to the national power grid. 5,000 expected to be connected this year, and some of them will be connected using solar power. And when it comes to tourism, the Ministry of Tourism was also here, and the Cabinet Secretary Phyllis Kandie did outline some of the measures they are putting in place, and she actually said that Kenyans should not be worried that the introduction of a single visa for East Africa and also the use of ID cards would pose a security threat, that these were considerations that were made by the relevant ministries when this action plan was being put into place. Back to you in studio, Janet.
All right, thank you so much for that, Henry Githaiga, of course, bringing us updates of those briefings by the cabinet secretaries that continue up until Thursday. So we'll continue to get more information about that. Let's now take you back to the developing story of the Eastleigh blast that happened last night. A total of 657 suspects are in police custody following last night's explosions in Nairobi's Eastleigh estate, in which 6 people died and dozens more were injured. In a statement sent to newsrooms this morning, Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Olelenku has termed the attack as a cowardly act, saying security operations will continue until perpetrators of the terror attack are brought to book. Michael Njenga now brings us details of the situation as it was captured last evening.
7:20 p.m. Monday, and everything came to a standstill at Eastleigh's 12th Street after explosives detonated, killing 6 people and injuring scores others.
Sasa mbili ambayo mimi nilichukua kwanza na taxi pale karibu na petrol station, ndio nilipeleka Madina Hospital na taxi. Then after that ndio nikabidi nichukue ambulance kuja tuangalie yani kama kuna casualties zingine. Ndio tukapata casualties wengine wa 4.
We got to the scene shortly after the blast, and this is how the situation was. Family members could not hold their emotions as they struggled to find details about their loved ones who are said to be having dinner at Sheraton kiosk minutes before the explosions. Miraculously, the hotel owner who was at the counter when the incident happened escaped unhurt and was whisked away by the police to give his witness account.
Kuna watu nimeacha watu wamelala huko ndani. Kuna watu wamelala huko ndani. Walikuwa watu wengi juu ilikuwa masaa ya news, watu wanakuja kuangalia news.
Some of the victims who were injured were rushed to various hospitals. Others that were not seriously injured were too shocked to narrate about an incident that almost cost them their lives. According to the police, 2 explosions happened simultaneously, while the third one went off about 10 minutes later. The explosions happened within 200 meters of each other.
Which of course we suspect it is a terrorist attack, and it is a trial attack whereby we have 3 scenes. The first scene is Sheraton Hotel, just behind me. The other one, which of course ran simultaneously, is Kwamzaledo Hotel, and the third one is Mother and Child Care along First Avenue. Starting with the first one behind me, it is believed that some bad boys either went there inside with some grenade, and of course we suspect because of the magnitude of that attack, could be an IED, we suspect.
Police are now calling on the residents to be more vigilant and report any suspicious characters within their area to avert such kind of happenings in future.
I would like to assure Nairobians and Kenyans at large that police officers are on top of issues. We are there to ensure that Nairobians and Kenyans, wherever they are, in respect of terrorism, they are secure. All what we require and we urge you is to support us, to ensure that any information that can lead us to arrest of such bad boys is welcome, and we ensure that such information will treat us with full confidentiality.
The explosion comes just a day after an assailant died when an improvised explosive device he was assembling went off. Several suspects were arrested in a swap carried out in the area by the police, who cordoned off the area. Michael Njenga, Citizen at 1, Nairobi.
Police in Garissa County have arrested 25 suspected foreigners for being in the country illegally. The suspects were arrested in 2 separate incidents on their way to Mombasa and Nairobi.
The suspects, believed to have been traveling from Wajir and Garissa, were arrested following a swoop mounted by the county provincial security agencies as the country heightened security surveillance at all border points across the country.
Is it Garissa, Dadaab, where?
And while most of the passengers aboard various vehicles were cleared to proceed with their journey, some 25 suspects were not lucky after it emerged that they had no proper identification documents.
When we talk of proper documentation, we mean a genuine national identity card. And also, once you have a national identity card, we also need to know maybe the purpose of coming to Garissa, or where you are actually.
Some high school students also found themselves in trouble as they were engaged in answering several questions, including the identity of their school principals.
There are actually 8 numbers. That's why we are saying these student ID cards, unless somebody, lazima uwe unajua mwalimu yako ni nani? Yes. Kama ni master ama mwalimu yako ya class.
Garissa County Commissioner Rashid Khator said the operation will continue.
We appreciate that when we went into the buses, we took the opportunity also to talk to the people in the buses about the need to be security conscious and the need to actually know who they are traveling with, because this is our country and we must all protect it.
The public service vehicle operators lauded the efforts by the police in trying to prevent bad elements from sneaking into the country.
Sisi wote tunatakana tufanye bidii ili hao magaidi wasitufanyie kitendo ambayo itatuumiza sisi wa Kenya. Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali yetu pia iendelee kukaa macho hivyo tusaidiane kufanya kazi na wao.
The operation comes just days after police officers from the anti-terror unit intercepted a Nairobi-bound bus from Garissa and apprehended a suspect believed to be an Al-Shabaab commander at Mwingi. Zedi Kosgei for Citizen Live at 1.
We're now joined live in studio by the